mental aspect of it gets it to react too, which it's like a binary switch.
The damn game warden was under the bridge with his binoculars looking, and
other fish, I guarantee you, was anywhere from 10 to 12. And you know the 10XD hooks, they're like, it was a stock hook, but they're like stout, dude. It opened up a 10XD hook.
Don't ever cook bacon naked.
So, you know what's funny about that, guys, is I don't think Mikey realized he was part of my intro because he was kind of messing around on his keyboard. He heard his own voice and looked up at the screen like, what the hell was that?
No, I heard somebody talking about cooking bacon naked, and that's a liability, dude. I've cooked bacon without a shirt on, and that's danger stranger kind of deal, dude.
Yeah, that was my boy Bobby out of Jigs and Bakes podcast, dude. He's a unit for sure.
It's a unit. It's funny, that word's been coming up quite a bit lately. I freaking I don't want to jump right into it. I went live bait fishing with a buddy of mine on Chickamauga, and it was absolutely freaking ridiculous. And he caught one. There's a lot of fish up here, like on the TVA, that get. I'm just amazed how fat they get, right? So this fish was like 21 inches or something, 20 inches, and it was like 7 pounds, dude. It was just like tall, like I just edited the video, and he's like, "Bro, that's a freaking unit," and it cracked me up, dude.
I'm assuming that buddy is probably what, Caleb?
Yes, Caleb took me out. I went over to Talk and Tackle over on Chickamauga, and I stayed there for a couple days with my buddy Ryan Hanks, who does the cast bait stuff, like that Prodigy, that little, like it's like a Kitech size kind of swim bait.
Yep.
And they were shooting stuff, and I went over there with the dog and hung out with those guys, and freaking they were super cool, dude. And then we went out, me and Caleb on the last day went live bait fishing. He said he would take me out, and we filmed it, and I think we had like 36, 37 pounds, and it was the most ridiculous. It was just fun too. It was like old man fishing, dude. It reminded me of like worm fishing on a slip bobber up north. It was cool.
What's crazy is that guy, that Bacon Naked, he went down there and fished with Caleb.
Yeah. It's dumb. Like blatantly freaking dumb.
What's crazy, it's funny too is the stigma too. Like bass guys get pissy about like guys that use live bait. And I'm like, why? You caught fish. Like I don't understand. They're like, oh, you got OBU. Like there's so many guys that like you have to use artificial. That's the only way to fish. And I'm like, but you could catch gigantic fish on live bait. Like I don't understand the stigma behind it at all.
Listen, I wasn't feeling too stigmatized. I was enjoying the hell out of it. It was freaking fun, man. Like it was, and you know what? It was really different than what I expected. Like I've done a little bit of shiner fishing down in Florida, but the process that he goes through to like keep them alive, like catching the live bait, like it was really, it reminded, I filmed a couple saltwater trips when I was in Florida, and it reminded me a little bit of that because like you get on the boat and you're like, all right, let's go fishing. And the guide's like, oh no, au contraire, we got to go catch bait. We got to go find bait. And then we go and we got to rig everything up and all this stuff. And it was like a process, but it was cool as hell. Dude, we had like 22 pounds in like an hour. It was dumb. And
I used to do that. We used to catfish a lot. So what we would do is during the day, we would go to the bank and we would throw worms and we would catch like bluegill and perch and shit, cut them up, throw them in a bucket, let them sit in the sun all day while we were hanging out. And then once it got dark, you'd start chumming the water and throwing chunks of perch and bluegill that you caught earlier as bait for the catfish.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same deal. We used to do that stuff all the time. So I was thinking about this on the way home. I was like, I got to think of some questions to ask Mikey, because usually I just kind of ramble. But I've been watching your videos for a long time, and I realized I have no idea what your favorite style of fishing is, because you do so many different things on your channel.
I mean, if you're asking, I'd say it kind of changes. Like,
okay.
It's like that's the one thing I think you got to be. A lot of people are cranky with the forward-facing stuff, right?
Right.
And some of that has to do with guys have a way they imagine fishing, and some things with that don't fit. I like trying new things and doing new stuff. I really enjoy it, to be honest with you. It's one of my favorite ways to fish now because I love the way you interact with the fish. So like throwing the jerk bait is cool, and I'm not super great at it too. So like it's fun because I'm learning the minnow dangling thing. I've been doing stuff like that without forward facing with a Kitech for years, and I love, dude. Before we had like the forward looker, I'm like good with a Kitech. Like there's something about like tight lining and stuff that just speaks to me. So like I get into that. I mean, one of my favorites, obviously, like I love to flip mats. Like it's one of those things that I enjoy. I'm pretty decent at it. I can read the grass pretty well, and there's nothing like the spinning rod is fun because it's the opposite end, but the same thing is what the braid and the heavy rod and the heavy weight is, right? So on the
Right.
rod, it's all this crazy, like fast paced, like high intensity kind of like fishing, right? And the braid stuff, it's funny how two things so different can be the same. Like when you're flipping, it's the same deal. Like it's intense, dude. You're like pitching to the fish. It's all statistical, dude. It's on the drop. They freaking smoke it. You're fighting them. The braid's squeaking. You know, it's two things in two totally different ways that are a lot more alike than people think. So really, those are kind of like my favorite things right now. I love dangling the minnow. I love the Kitech, and I'm always gonna love flip doodling. You know, but then I think about it too, and dude, I went on a freaking tear for like 2-3 years with a crankbait where I'd long line it, I'd crank it, I'd throw a 10XD. I tried every crankbait to, known on Tackle Warehouse kind of
Yep.
thing. So like, I don't know. I kind of go through. I think you talked about that with me one time too. Like I'm a little manic, right? So like I go through cycles or
Yep.
like fads where I'm like hyper interested in this, and I like learn as much as I can about it and try to get decent at it, and then I'll move to something else and on it.
I think too, the other thing about that is I also think it has a lot to do with YouTube too, because
100%.
as a content creator, like no one's going to watch you flip a jig all day, every day. They want to hear about the new swim bait that came out if it catches, or they want to hear about something that's different. That's a technique that they haven't seen. So like I know for me, I have tried to learn certain baits. I don't want to say for YouTube specifically, but it's inspired me to take the time to grind to learn a new technique, because I don't feel like I can talk about it on my channel unless I do it enough to be confident in it. I don't want to be like that guy that's like, I'm taking what Mikey said and telling you what Mikey said, but I've never actually caught a fish this way, but Mikey says it works, so I'm going to tell you this. Like, I
do that all the time. I see stuff and I'm like, I never caught one like that. But you know what? That's the environment we're in though too, dude. If you think about it, everything is like, so like a great example is like the way we used to think about baits or find out about baits, right? So you went into a tackle shop. You talked to your buddy at the lake, and it was like your local regional lake, right? Or it was like way top level where you'd watch like a Bassmaster deal and like they would catch them on this, and you're like, man, I got to try that on my lake, even though they were down in Arkansas and you're in freaking Wisconsin, right? But now there's such like a disparate media, right? So there's so much content, there's so much information. Like one of my favorites is Jay Kumar's Bass Blaster. He does it a little different these days. Like I used to like the way he used to do it, but like he's always digging around, finding kind of weird stuff. There's so many JDM platforms to highlight baits. So we see this stuff and it comes to us a lot quicker. And the media cycle, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like the whole fad and popularity, other than like the jig and minnow thing, but even that's an example. All these things, just like the news media cycle, they happen. They're 15 minutes, dude. They're 24 hours. They're 36 hours. Like that. They're in, they're out. And it's like, man, it feels like last year I heard about that bait. Well, it was like a month ago.
Yep.
Know? So we're exposed to a lot more stuff, which is negative, but it's also positive, right? And we can try a lot more stuff. I almost feel like, I don't know if you guys can see, I can't take my camera off. Let me scoot over. So this is my boat back here, dude. This is like 1/3 of my boat behind me because I'm getting a new boat and I took everything out of my boat. Well, I was like trolling through my stuff and I can't tell you how many things I found where there was like a day and I'm like trolling around and I'm like, dude, I got to get that off of Tackle Warehouse. I got to get that from Monster Bass. I want to try that. And bro, like the list stacks up and I haven't freaking tried it yet. And it's not because it doesn't work. It's not because I don't want to. It's because how much time do you have in a day to like do stuff? Like I don't fish full time. Like I get 1 to 3 days a week. And like you forget like, oh, I wanted to try this and dedicate some time to this. And it's cool, but it's frustrating, you know?
That's where I will say like Tackle Warehouse, that's where that wish list helps. because I will say I throw a bunch of stuff in that wish list. I don't necessarily always order it, but sometimes I'm like, oh man. But like you said, the funny part is like the YouTube stuff makes baits go in and out of style really fast.
Yeah.
Like you'll also get baits that will die because everybody's using the jackhammer. You know, like the Evo, for example. The Evo was a bait that I saw on YouTube, and I was like, okay, this is a little bit more my price point because I have pike and pickerel up here, and I'm not going to throw a $20 jackhammer. I'm probably going to lose $40 today because they get hungry. So I'm like, the Evo's a little cheaper. But the thing is, dude, I caught fish on the Evo for the first 3 months of the year, and then it stopped working. And I personally, as a content creator, blame content creators because there was a lot of guys putting Evo content out, and then everybody started using it. The fish got used to that frequency, so then that bait stops working. It's funny how like content creators really have a huge influence, honestly, even on the environment, in my opinion. Like a lot of times, like baits will become huge, but I've also noticed in a lot of places that I fish that have deeper sections that I can go to the bank and catch big ones now because they're hiding from the guys with forward-facing sonar out in the middle, dinking that minnow. Those fish are going back up to the docks where they weren't, last year, but those guys that got the easy forward-facing sonar setup that they finally figured out.
Well,
I don't want to say easy.
Yeah, I'm not doing that because it's a lot more complex.
And I don't mean I mean they have it available to them.
Yeah, and that's what's cool though, right? So like that's exactly what we're talking about. Where that's like the fad. That's what everybody wants to learn. Because I've had the same experience, man. Like I'm not on tournament winning fish, but I've gone shallow a couple times on Gunnersville, and there aren't that many people fishing it, and it's ridiculous, dude. And I'm gonna do that this winter. One of the weirdest things about Gunnersville and these Tennessee Valley, like the TVA Tennessee River Lakes, is how shallow these fish get in the winter. Like we've caught them, and I can't take credit for knowing this. My buddy showed it to me. Like, dude, it'll be 30, 25 in the morning. Maybe the high is like 45, 50. And it's not like going into spawn or anything. It's like the dead of winter. We just have a sunny day and they're in 1.5 foot, 2 foot of water, dude. It's freaking stupid. And they'll eat. It's crazy, man.
So that lake that I texted you a photo that said that does this look like Florida, that home lake I have?
Yeah.
So in April, we had our first Slay Nation tournament. We put up a 94-inch kayak bag in April.
Nice.
And the reason for that is because that particular lake has that same symptom where there is a deeper section. And the guys that had forward-facing sonar, the textbook says you should have gone out deep and fished. There's literally an island in 15, 20 feet of water, which with this body of water is probably mid column because the deepest section is 40 feet. Right. And it's the textbook should say, find the deep water near the shallow spawning flat. That's where they're going to be before the spawn. That's where everybody went. I was in 3 feet of water fishing the edge of grass mats that won't be there for 2 months.
Yeah.
And we're pulling in 5-pounders. And my teammate didn't believe me. I'm like, dude, seriously, fish right here. He's like, why? We're in the middle of the access area. And I'm like, no, dude, what you don't understand is between here and that 100 yards to the bank is all lily pads next month. They're just not here yet, but they live here and they're resident fish. And I think that's something that I actually put out a video trying not to play into the forward-facing sonar hoopla, but the number one technique that you really need, the number one thing is just learning your lakes and getting the experience on the water. Now, the forward-facing sonar gives you the advantage of if they're out in the middle of 10 feet down in 20 feet of water, your down imaging isn't going to help you that much because you're not going to be able to see as much or be able to tell if they're reacting to your baits, which is why I actually texted you about that Eagle 9. Is that something that I'm looking into because my game, I need a target. Yeah. I need a tree. I need a rock pile. I need grass, something to mentally fish. Even if I'm fishing off the bank and cranking, I'm still fishing structure along the bank and then working to it. Having that forward-facing sonars where I can get out in the middle and start looking for schools of fish, see how they react to XYZ bait. Because jerk baits, for example, that's
100%
something you could throw out there, twitch it. Are they reacting to it? Are they running from it? What are they?
Are they right behind it the whole time? You don't even know. That's what I just put up a video on that with burning it, dude. I was watching on the forward-facing sonar, and I'll break your rules real quick here too. Dude, it's not for freaking deep. Like, so I was talking to you about
Okay.
like school, like the fish that I caught shallow. I
Right.
could literally see them in 3 foot of water where I was
Okay.
catching. So like one of the things that guys haven't talked about, and we've been doing it for a few years with the forward facing, is we're catching them in like 2-3 foot of water. Now, granted, there's not a lot of grass. There'll be like grass strands and stuff, and you're not like minnow dangling the shallow ones. You're
Right.
saying you're rolling up to a flat point, say, and you can pan around. It's 3 foot deep, 2 foot deep. It's a clay bar, maybe 4 foot, whatever. And you're like, oh my God. And this is what happened when we were out there is they're not on the tip of the point. They're on the left inside turn of the point. It's still 3 foot, like 3 foot, but I can see them all over the top of the grass. Let's throw our chatterbaits there. But,
See, and that's actually one of the things I was thinking about though for me too, is that is a good point because there is like a row of docks, right? If you want to see where they're schooling up on those docks, if you're shining that forward facing sonar at those docks, you can see maybe I shouldn't fish this dock because there's nothing there, but that one has them. So you could kind of speed up your timeline because let's be honest, there is places where like there's 20 docks, but they're only on 2 of them. They can give a shit less about those other 20 docks. So having that going down the bank can be like, okay, nope. Okay, that one's got fish on it. Let's go, flip that one. That's a point I didn't think about that you could do. And mats the same way. I could see where like
you can see them under the mats a little bit,
like up against the grass mats. So if you see them through it, it's probably going to be tough.
You can see them under it.
Right. True.
Floating mats, you can see them under it. It's an efficiency thing. Though. The only problem is, dude, and I'll be the first to admit, like I like the forward-facing sonar, but I do. What's the best word? Like I fish from it, right? Like it's a tool. And the one thing that annoys me is I live in a beautiful part of the country and I find myself looking down more than I look up, which is essential and you have to do it to be efficient. But it's nice to just freaking look around sometimes. And I find myself doing that less and less. So.
And that's my goal, is to try to blend it. Like I want to be able to, because there's some lakes, like because my tournament, I'm directing the tournaments this year, and there's going to be a couple of lakes that are smallmouth centric lakes that I know I'm gonna want to try to go deep and try to find them, and then also I'm going to be able to use forward facing sonar. But I also think that some guys get away from their roots and then they struggle because they're so dedicated to this expensive technology that they bought that they don't think about, oh, I could go get a 5-pounder from the dock, but I want to keep using this. Like I think sometimes people don't stay versatile. That's why I asked about your favorite bait, is because like for example, Rudd cranks. That's what he does. That dude throws a crankbait down and hammers it, and he likes to do a lot of the power fishing stuff. Like a lot of guys you watch, they have their specific like niches that they do. Whereas I watch your videos and it's like, Monday it's like, hey guys, I'm using a paddle tail swim bait, and then Tuesday you're like, I'm flipping, and then Thursday you're like, hey, this is the new jerk bait I found. So like I've never really seen you focus on one particular bait, but that's also mostly because clearly from your background, you're a bait junkie, so you're kind of just testing stuff all the time anyways. But
yeah, I like to bounce around with stuff, and I don't know what the right way to put it is. Like you said, like I said too, and you said, like we go into like little fads. Like for the past like 30 to 60 days, I've had like 3 jerk baits and like 3 minnow like setups on my deck, and I've been running like that and been successful. That's kind of changing now a little bit, but like that's and a spook, like, and that's really it's the way it's been, but then things kind of like tweak. And the other thing that's cool is with the YouTube stuff, I can't shoot the same video twice. I might do it like from year to year because of seasonal stuff, but even like aside from people watching getting bored, I get freaking bored. So it's sometimes it actually is bad, because the fact is you figured out like something that works, you should go run around and do it for the next 2 weeks, right? But the reality is on my end is I need to do something different to shoot some content. So I got to try to do something that might not be working to do something different. So, it is what it is. What's nice with the forward facing though is you learn a lot more. I'm somebody who loses interest very quickly. And I think even maybe I'm just becoming a part of the culture where my attention span is 3 seconds. What's nice with the forward facing stuff is I can see what engagement looks like and get a baseline for like moods and just be a little more analytical and like results oriented with stuff. And I can see whether fish are engaging and interacting with what I'm offering too, you know? So
Yeah.
that it's been really helpful for the process, but it's becoming more and more of a factor. 365 days a year on a lot of these lakes, you can go and dangle a minnow. Maybe it's a 3-inch minnow, maybe it's a 5-inch minnow, but you can catch them like that every freaking day of the year, dude.
Yeah. Well, and that's also like I think that's what drew me to fishing though too, is my ADHD. Like I can't go throw a wacky rig all day long. Like even if I'm catching fish on a wacky rig or finesse bait or specific bait, I will then just completely like if I'm fun fishing, I'll be like I'm going deep. Like no for no reason other than I'm just bored with this technique. Like I can't keep doing the same thing. And that's what's cool about fishing is there's 100 different ways that you could attack every lake and then adapting. So and honestly, like you said, there's only a select few people on YouTube that can make the same videos every year, tactical bass, that can just keep doing it. Like those guys kind of make the same videos, but people watch them and they're popular and people do it. But like I'm small, like I have to try to do something weird. One of my best videos was literally from me getting bored one day and I hooked a Berkeley gilly on a buzzbait.
That's kind of cool.
And I was just like, you know what? Like, this is a weird trailer. Let's see what happens on a buzzbait. And then I made a video about doing it. I'm like, this is an alternate way to fish this. And then people started, and they still watch it. It's been up there for 4 years, and I'm still getting like, it'll like creep back up and keep getting views. But I do stuff like that all the time. I drop shot them all the time too.
Speaking of doing the same thing too, in the comments I saw Michael Bradley was asking if I still fish with Fido Beto, the dude that we caught the 49 pounds with. And so like that's an example of like a video that we do every year. Like, but it's more of like a people video. So to answer his question, we're not fishing crankbaits as much anymore, but we actually had a killer day. I took Fido Beto David, my buddy, out, and we had 45 pounds and change, dude. It was ridiculous, man. Freaking doing some dangle stuff, fishing like little swim baits and stuff, and it was freaking cool. So every year I get together with him and do that. But like, it's more, I guess, like the repetitive videos I do are more like people and places versus doing every once in a while. I guess I do the same technique over. Like I'll probably shoot some Kitech videos, you know, come like the next few weeks and it's cold. It is cold here and stuff like that, but I try to mix it up, and there's so many opportunities to mix it up, right? There's so many weird baits. You just gotta allot yourself enough time to like learn the bait, learn how it works, and then get at least. I don't think you have to be perfect at it. You just have to be moderately able to fish it, right? To like get some reactions, get some closure, get some interactions from the fish, and you can shoot a cool video, dude. You ain't gotta catch freaking 30 pounds every time.
Honestly, what I learned from doing YouTube was like the days I'm not catching fish is the days that I do that.
Yeah.
Like if I'm having a good day and I'm catching fish, I'll try to like just continue. But if like I have a day where I'm struggling and I'm like, I can't make a video today, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to pull out this bait that I suck with. I'm going to go fish it. And I actually recommend that in a lot of my videos because like if you're having a bad day, rather than going home, like you said, like I'm the same way. I have 3 days a week to fish. I'm not going to waste one of those 3 days not fishing, just go home because I'm not catching. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Even if the conditions don't call for it, I'm going to go practice with a jerkbait or a buzzbait or whatever bait that I want to learn because I'm there. I might as well learn the technique so that when the actual conditions call for it, I'm a little bit more confident with it.
Yeah, 100%. That's one thing that like I'm thankful for now is I've been in this area where I live. Like I've been in Florida obviously for a long time, so I kind of understand. I'm not awesome or anything, but like I understand basically kind of how things work. Doesn't mean I'm going to catch them every time, but once you have a good baseline of understanding, and I'm starting to get there here, like in Gunnersville, Smith Lake, Lanier, some of these highland reservoirs that are north of me in Tennessee, I got a basic seasonal understanding. And once you kind of like get that grasped and understood, that's when you have a little more ability to sort of mix it up and be creative, right? Because you know about what's happening, where the general population should be, about what they're doing, and then you can be like, okay, so how do I solve the problem, right? How do I solve the equation? What what would work for when they're in this water column in 10 to 20 foot, but they're going to be suspended more towards the top. The water's going to be pretty clear. What do I do? Or like, that we got a bunch of rain. It's freaking winter. We're getting some flood stages, but the water's going to warm up a whole bunch, but we have really low water clarity. What are they going to do? And whereas 3-4 years ago, I was freaking, Molly WTF, like I have no idea what these fish are doing. Now I got a little better idea of how they set up in various scenarios and the seasonal conditions. So then I can play around with those presentations a little, and it allows me to shoot some stuff. It doesn't always work, no doubt, but it allows me to shoot some cool stuff.
I can tell you the number one mistake I make is going to a lake with the intention of making a specific video.
Yeah, unless you're like dialed, dude.
Yep. It's like Mother Nature's always like, I'm like, you know what? I've been killing it on jigs, so I'm gonna make a video about fishing jigs. And then Mother Nature's like, fuck you are, because they're not gonna bite a jig today. Yeah. But that's where I learned. Like, I have a couple of lakes. I call them like my R&D lakes, and it's that same deal. So they're small and they're like, they have very diverse groups. But like, I have, a grass mat, and then I have a sand flat, and then I have deep water, and then I have docks, and then like I've gotten to the point where, and I've taken my buddies there, like my teammate in Slay Nation, like I've literally taken him there and I'm like, okay, dude, throw a black and blue swim jig over there, and then he'll catch a fish. He's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, dude, I have these, like, I have done this. I have so many hundreds of hours, and he's not catching. I mean, we're not talking like, 10 pounders, but like I can get you on like 13, 14-inch fish on the regular on this lake. But then what I do is then I'm like, okay, well, I know that's working. So now I'm going to throw an 8-inch glide bait that I've never caught a fish on and try to figure it out, because I know the fish are there. Yeah. So now, like, I have at least the confidence of knowing it's either they don't want that bait or I'm working it wrong, not there is no fish there. Because that's, I think, a lot of times the hardest confidence part of, like, is it the bait? Or is it just they don't want it? Or is it just there's no fish there? Like, sometimes
that's where that forward facing stuff comes in handy, because you can get a lot better idea. Yeah. I mean, at least if fish are interacting, like, maybe like not understanding why they're not closing and stuff, but at least you can see like, hey, there's been a fish like 3 feet behind my bait, like every 10 casts. Okay, I'm doing something wrong, that no doubt, but I'm not in the wrong place, or maybe I am in the wrong place. Maybe I need to go and see if they're doing like more closing, like on the lower end of the lake, or like maybe out towards deeper water. And that is where the forward facing has been like super duper handy. It's also made me like a professional catfisherman, dude, because the big catfish look like big bass. And I went out the other day, and bro, I think I caught like 6 freaking 7-pound plus catfish for every 1 5-pound bass I would catch. My odds were
I could see that
off the chain, but.
Well, and that's the other thing I learned. Like, I was making some footage for eBay at one point, because he sent me a bunch of baits and he wanted to get some like underwater footage, and I had one of those like cameras. And dude, it was amazing to me how many fish followed my bait back but didn't make it to the boat. So I had no idea. Like, that same and that's actually what's making me think about getting into that, was the whole like thinking about the fact that I had like legit fish, sometimes even like tiny fish, but like I was watching the camera feed. And they would tail it for 5-6 feet and then leave, But like, you would never know that.
100%.
You have no idea, because you can't see the fish. They're out that far or they're out that deep. You have no idea that 10 fish grouped up with your bait, came back with it, and then left. And then the next, like, so having that information sometimes is something stupid, like going from June bug to black blue, and all of a sudden they're biting.
A lot of times though, it's retrieve. Because, dude, I've seen some ridiculous stuff. I've seen fish, like, these jokers aren't smart, but they're good. I've seen, like, 7 fish that are not, like, tiny, literally in a blob around your bait. And a lot of times they'll follow, right? So then it's like, oh, how do I close? But I've literally seen them, like, hitting the bait, darting at the bait, and you won't feel all of them. You, like, every once in a while, you might feel, like, on a jerkbait, you might feel it barely, like, touch. But I've seen them darting, and you get the bait back to the boat, and there's like 2 foot off the boat. You can't see them, but they're down there like 6 foot or whatever. You're like, how did one not get hooked? And like, stuff like that happens, and you'd never, ever freaking know. Or the amount of fish that, one of the other crazy things that I've seen is I have my active target 2 set up where I can basically see the surface of the water, right? So I can fish a spook on it. So one thing that we do is spots, especially, they'll suspend. Dude, you can be in 60 foot of water, and they'll suspend 2 to 4 foot under the surface over these giant flats because they're just schooled up, waiting for like a ball of herring to go through or something like that. And I've seen like literally, dude, you'll be throwing a spook or what's that jackal one? The riser.
Yeah.
Throwing a riser, dude. And the whole freaking school is like all over your stuff, like coming up. And dude, none of them like get it, and they're like on it, and like you wouldn't even know they were there. Like it's crazy some of the stuff that you see. And for me, like I like the baits and all that stuff, and it's super cool to see how they interact. I like just seeing how fish behave, all baits aside, and seeing like it's like we went to the aquarium over in Chattanooga, and they have a freshwater aquarium. I thought that was the coolest deal. Guys going to Bass Pro, right, or Cabela's, and you go to the aquarium. And for people like us, it's so cool to see how they slunch around, they do whatever,
Yep.
and I don't know, they just like seeing that when you start to understand the forward facing and get all that information. For me, it's a little like scientific experiment every time you're looking at it, and your ability to view that's always been sort of the dark ether part, right? Is we're trying to present a bait in a place that we can't go as humans and stay in. So we're trying to put this foreign object down there to tease and trick something to interact with it. And now we have it's granted it's like digital lines and flashes and crap like that, so it's not like actually looking at a fish, but if you can imagine and visualize it, like you're actually seeing, after a while you sort of get the hang of it in your head how it works, and you're like seeing this interaction and these fish swimming and stuff, and it's super cool to me. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I geek out. I'm actually I'm thinking about buying. I don't know if you've seen like Alex talks about that book, like Knowing Bass or whatever, that Berkeley used to set up their lab and stuff like that. Like when you start looking into bass biology, I will say like you start to understand the dumb crap that happens on the water. It starts to make more sense, because at the end of the day, like we do give too much credit to bass for being like an intelligent species. They're basically just constantly doing an equation in their head. Am I going to burn more calories than I'm going to get by going and eating whatever's in front of me?
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's one of the things that you have to think about, is like sometimes, like a lot of times when people say to downsize, I'll upsize.
Yeah.
Because like when up here, when it gets cold, especially like when it starts to get cold, everybody's like, oh, slow down and get downsize. Sometimes I'll upsize, I'll still slow down. But in my mind, it's like, okay, if I can throw a Ned rig by a bass that's hungry, that's doing that equation, that I'm cold, I don't want to move, but I need food. Is he going to eat a Ned rig, or is he going to eat a 6-inch swim bait? He's going to want that 6-inch swim bait and not have to move again because he's full for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So sometimes like doing the opposite of the textbook, because that's one thing that I say a lot on my channel too, is the bass didn't read the textbook, guys. They don't know what they're supposed to eat.
Yeah, 100%. We make the rules because those rules make us feel like we have more control, and we're more able to sort of make a plan and judge things and execute, right?
Right.
That's one of the funny things too with the floor. I don't want to get too deep into the
No, you're good.
stuff, but like I loved In Fisherman, right? In Fisherman was great. I read that stuff when I was a kid, like the magazines, and like just ate it up. But it was all based on rules, And the only rule with fishing is that there really aren't rules. Like a lot of the bites that I've seen with some of this forward facing, and actually some of the stuff at first, it was a lot of sort of extrapolating and building on the standards, right? Ledge fish, they're on the bottom, we can see them. How do we tease them? It's things along those lines. How do we fish a jerk bait, right? For these fish that are in the mid depths that like draw up. But what's happening now is there's these off the wall bites occurring, like these like weird ditch fish setups where they're suspended over like 50 and largemouth, not like spots, not smallmouth, nothing like that, but they're like suspended over 20, 30, 40 foot, and they're just out there floating. Maybe they're near a point, right, or near a tree, but they're just out there. And there's so many rules that are being sort of broken because the rules are for us. The rule, like you said, the rules aren't for the fish. The rules are for us to make us feel like we can understand and control things. And you got to kind of break through. That's why these kids are good, dude. Is because they don't have rules. They go out there and they might be using the forward looker in that, but they're not ingrained with like 15, 20 years of skipping chatterbaits under a dock, throwing the swim jig on shallow grass. Like it doesn't apply. That hasn't been there, trending pattern for freaking 10 years or whatever when it comes to December like 15th and the water comes up kind of thing. So
that's because they haven't had 15 years of the best baits to use in December, and then they only use those baits because that's what they said in fishermen. They're like, you use this bait in these conditions when the water gets to this temperature, and that's what we kind of learned, and that's what we do.
Well, they're a lot more pliable, like they're just, I don't know, and they're willing to try random off the wall stuff, which is harder to do as you get older, right? You kind of get in your zone, you get in your grain, and that's why I always try to use the new stuff too and try different things. One, I'm a degenerate and like I like it. Like I was telling the girl too, I've been working a whole bunch with like my regular job stuff that I do. And all I've wanted to do, dude, and this is like the 12-year-old adolescent that won't go away in me, is all I want to do is organize this stuff and go through it and play with my toys, right? Because they're all like little toys. They have a function, they have a scenario and that. But like I like playing with all that stuff. And that's a good thing too, because it makes you open to be like, wow, this is a cool variation. It reminds me of a trap, but it's totally different. Or like, you got to be open to some of those things because they can suck, and they not be rewarding at all. But if you're not open to trying some of those newer things and these weird sort of concoctions coming from Japan, or even the stuff that's just at home in the home country that people are developing, like you're not going to find like little neat, fun things. The Ned's a great example, actually. When that came out, I didn't touch it, dude. It was out for like a year. And I know all the old timers say they've been doing it for years, cutting down shaky heads and that's true. But I started playing with it after like a year or something, just to do something different. And bro, like I absolutely love tossing a Ned. It's so multifunctional in that. And if I wouldn't have been open to something that's the same but different, right? It's a stick bait that's cut down. It's a little kind of chunky little freaking long, and you put it on a little jig head. If I wasn't open to that, dude, I would have missed out, So I try to use those examples when I'm thinking about stuff. They're not all going to work, but it's fun to try, and you got to be willing to fail to succeed, right?
I think one of the things too is like that's where I had to learn. Like the Ned was a perfect example, dude. I can't say I still don't really fish a Ned. Now I will say I fish the Gambler Power Ned more. But that's because where I fish, it's muck bottom. There's no hard bottom. And then, like, I would say of the main lakes that I fish the most often, there's maybe a 30-foot stretch where I could use a Ned the way you're supposed to use a Ned. Like, otherwise, I am dragging that thing and ripping it out of milfoil and getting aggravated because I'm bending out that little tiny hook all the time and having to change stuff out. But the Power Ned, which is actually your fault because you made a video talking about it, allowed me to take that same presentation in a weedless format and then still do it. But I was very adverse to fishing that bait. But at the same time, I'll fish a wacky rig, which when you get into finesse world, like you fish a Ned, you fish a wacky rig, I've learned to diversify myself because there is days where they will only eat the Ned. They will only eat the wacky rig. They will only eat the Texas rig. Like if you don't try different stuff, then you are missing out on, those fish bites that you wouldn't get otherwise because you don't know that. And the situations, a lot of it is the Rolodex, I think.
Well, once again, I'm going to go back to Michael Bradley had a cool comment. I think smallmouth eat first and ask questions later.
Yeah.
That's good. And so here's the funny thing that I've been learning too. And it's because of Gunnersville quite a bit. I love catching spots, right? And spots are southern smallmouth to an extent. There's obviously differences, don't get me wrong. What I'm finding more and more is the largemouth actually behave very close to the spots, but you have to find them in the right scenarios. So what I mean by that, and it's all forward-facing stuff, but like the suspending, the roaming around, the floating around near cover but not related. They're relating to cover, but that's like their secondary need, right? They're relating to bait, they're relating to open water, and the reactions too. Getting him using a giant bait, right? Like we've been fishing a lot of these Sakamata sheds, 7-inch, 8-inch, like these big baits, right?
Yeah.
And they won't even look at a 4 or 5-inch bait, dude. So like drawing power, which is spots and smallmouth are renowned for, right? You throw something that's bigger than them, and they're like, dude, what's up? You want to fight? You get this reaction, and in the end, they're like the same freaking species or whatever, right? They're the same style of organism. So there's going to be like likenesses between the way they behave. And I'm just amazed at how close some of those behaviors are in contrast to how much we segregated each species for their behavior. Like there's a lot more that's the same than what we thought. And once again, it's a forward facing scenario, but I like catching those jokers. It's fun.
Up here, it's funny because there's a lot of lakes that I have where there's like smallmouth and largemouth schools. So like they'll hang out together.
Yeah, 100%.
And they don't, which by the textbook they shouldn't. They should be like, you go into a grass mat and you could throw a worm or a crankbait or a swim bait in there, and you'll catch a smallmouth and then a largemouth and then a smallmouth. Like they're in the same zone. But at the end of the day, like you said, that's where like knowing bass biology, the food's there. They're there because there's frogs, there's bait fish, there's birds in some cases, like whatever the hell they're eating, that's where it is. And I actually think a lot of times the thing I've learned from watching forward facing sonar videos, which is kind of funny that you said that it works shallow too, is like I've started to wonder if the fish I was catching shallow weren't actually shallow when I was fishing for them. I wonder sometimes if they're out looking shallow, see me cast a crankbait up along, like when you're working a square bow along the shoreline, they may not have been in that shoreline. He could have been out here
and come in.
He was just watching the shoreline and happened to be swimming by, because I've had a lot of times where like it only works fishing one angle.
Yeah.
Like, you catch, you're at a bank and you 45 the bank, you'll catch fish, but if you parallel it, you won't. Why?
Yeah.
Because maybe they were out 20 feet deeper than I thought they were. They weren't on the bank coming to the bait. They were coming deep to the shallow.
Or
stuff like that.
Bait out and you don't know. Yeah, that always drove me nuts with the old timers though. They like go down like a bluff wall or even like a grass line in Florida where there's like literally there's no grass outside the grass line, right? Like it's like 6 foot, like a maiden cane or Kissimmee grass, and it ends and there's nothing there. And the old timers, I'm like, dude, it'd be so much more efficient to like go along the grass line and throw along the grass line. And bro, they're out 30, 40 foot throwing like to each blade of grass, and there's like thousands of them, right? Yep. And they're dragging the worm back. But dude, they would catch freaking giants because a lot of those fish, like they're relating to the grass, they're like near it, right? But they're not directly relating to it. They're swimming around outside of it, and those guys are stubborn enough to hang out and try to catch those fish that are floating.
That's the other thing I learned too, is like trying to do multiple retrieves. So like a lot of times what I'll do, like if I'm fishing a swim jig, sometimes I'll just fish a swim jig like a football jig, like throw it up to a grass flat, drag it for a little bit, and then slowly retrieve it back.
Yeah.
So you get like a multiple, like a wacky rig. Sometimes I'll swim a wacky rig back.
Dude, that's
because sometimes like they will follow it and hit it after the fact.
So one of the sneakiest forward-facing things, like everybody throws a Nico rig, right? And they're all like doodling. Well, the past few years, one of the ways that I've been doing it is freaking you drop on them or you drop to them and you like power pop it, dude. Like you almost fish it like a spook, but not with your rod tip, with reeling. Yep. And bro, I have smoked them. Or like what you're talking about. So I'll be on the ledge, right? I'll fling that Nico rig out and I'm doodling, real slow, and with the forward facing, I'm noticing, there's freaking 6 fish all interested in my offering, right? What am I doing wrong? And bro, I will go just nice and slow. I will kill it, let it sit on the bottom like old man Werman style, and I will blaze that thing with like 3 rod reels, and I will catch a 6-pounder. Yep. So like retrieves are hugely important, and I've noticed that too. And the funny thing is, you talk about fishing slow too. I think one of my biggest like surprises, and I guess in a way I knew it. I love fishing a trap, right? Ripping a trap is one of my favorite things
Yeah.
to do. And we'd freaking just kind of get it going, slow reeling it, and then you pop it, whether there's grass or not, to get that reaction. I don't think you can fish. I think the only thing restricting the speed at which you can fish a lure is the lure itself. And even sometimes that's beneficial. So we were originally way back in the podcast, we were talking about the jerkbait video I just put up, where I mentioned it. So I'm actually throwing a jerkbait out, twitching it a couple times to get it down. And that's the last time I twitch it, dude. I'm actually burning it and reeling it. And what's funny is like the bait, I'm throwing like Megabass 110s, some Berkeleys in there. Like they're decent baits, like they hold true, they swim well. And what I was actually finding is when you burn them, they'd kind of hold true. But dude, these baits were like rolling to the side and getting upside down. And then they'd like stop out 2 foot out from the line they were supposed to be on. And that's when they'd eat them, man. Like that hunting kind of really erratic, bizarre sort of behavior. I don't think you can fish a bait fast enough in some scenarios. Winter, you can slow down. But the other thing that I tend to think about too is I think in winter they're more apt to eating a slower presentation, and it's easier to fish that way. So we do that. But the fact is like I think they'll eat a freaking fast bait like 365 days a year. Bed. So
you just got to hit the right spot with it. If you're gonna make them cross a 30-yard stretch to get that fast bait, they probably won't go for it. But if you run a fast bait right across their face, they're gonna lash out at it. If anything, they might be more likely to.
If they engage with the bait and you fish it super fast, you're more likely to close than doodle dangling. Now, as it gets colder, you can catch them doodle dangling and fishing slower than molasses kind of thing. But the engagement, once that fish it's like a freaking toddler, dude. Or you know what? Better example, a cat with a freaking laser light.
Yep.
Once they freaking see the laser light and they're about it, unless it's some spooky cat, dude, you can freaking put that up a wall. And that cat, even though it might have been lazy 2 seconds ago, is halfway up the wall, freaking chase it. Like you're all over the place. And once they're engaged, but then the disengagement happens, right? And that's really the language that I've started using a lot. It's engagement and disengagement. Like you can literally tell when a fish is engaged and when they disengage. Like there's times when there'll be a fish behind my bait. I can tell he's dropping back an extra foot or something. So maybe I'll put a little English in it and try to burn it in that. But that's my 50-50. I'm either going to lose or win. But I can pick up on that now that, these fish are disengaged, or this fish in particular is disengaged. I'm wasting my time, dude. This girl is not coming home from the bar with me. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn and move on to something else,
That's actually a trick I learned from the camera too, that I think forward-facing sonar would help, is like when you're working a glide bait or a swim bait, if you pause it just right and it does that turnaround thing, like you got them trailing it and you're like, man, they will not hit this fucking thing. You give it just a little pop and that thing. And what I think that is, I still, in my mind, and maybe it's just my own delusion, I think it just pisses that fish off. Like it thinks that bait fish, in my mind, it's like I'm higher than you on the food chain, and then you just defied me by looking me in the eye. So now I've got to kill you. I don't have any choice.
Or it's they know the thing sees them there, and
then they just need to do it. Yeah.
Dude, I got on a bite with Mike Bucca sent me a trick shad, the 7-inch. That's a bad mama jama right there. And dude, the Florida fish, like I've caught them on the Chad shad, I've caught them on the KGB. The bait Sanities are really good, like kind of mid-price level glide. But he sent me one of those trick shads, and I don't know what it is with those Florida fish. They couldn't handle it, and it does what you're talking about. Of all of those baits, the one that I could get to turn like almost 180 degrees around the most was that trick shed. And when you would do that, when they were right behind it, it was ridiculous.
You have to hold on the rod because they pound that bait.
Yeah, it's freaking, and that once again gets back to all this bait enamoration, I'll call it. That's not even a word, but that's why there's such, especially in swim baits, you see it. There's all this nuance to the way the baits behave, but we see it in more and more baits. Like for instance, I have my jerkbait box is made up pretty much of Megabass, and then Berkeley stunners. There's some others mixed in. There's like Yozuri makes a good jerk bait. There's a couple Duo Realis ones mixed in there, but the majority are those because I get two different behaviors, right? So with the mega bass, almost 95% of the time it'll suspend, right? Like I don't care what the water temperature is. I never have to put like lead on the hooks. I don't have to put like suspended dots. It's going to suspend whether the water's 85 degrees, whether the water's 45 degrees. However, that Berkeley dude does that slow sink, and that does that 90%, like 95% of the time. And bro, sinking that thing down in certain scenarios, or just having it sink, you know, when the shatter dying or something, like that's one of those little nuance aspects where they're pretty much the same bait. They have a little different action, they cast a little different, whatever. But that sinking aspect really freaking, it really kind of it allows me to make two different presentations, like two totally different presentations to the fish and get two totally different reactions. Plus, I can fish that jerkbait deep. That's one thing. When I went up north last year to Wisconsin, bro, I caught some giant walleye and some pretty nice smallmouth. Freaking sinking those things down on up in Wisconsin. They do a lot of those like man-made structures or whatever, you know. And like you can't get a jerkbait down to there, and a jerkbait's a great bait for neutral fish, and these fish were not in a good mood. So like you could throw a drop shot down there, maybe catch one like a small little rat, but the only way to get the bigger ones to bite was something where you draw their attention, get them engaged, and then you know, and that stunner, dude, I could throw it out there. It was painstaking, like 25, 30 foot. You're right. Freaking forever, bro. Yeah. But like you get it down there and you could get them to engage and then tease them enough, and it was freaking cool. Like,
it's funny that you say like the nuances between baits, because like I actually fish like yum dingers, and then I fish Senkos, but then I also fish smack scent. And the reason I have the same color of all of them, but what it is the yum dingers fall slower.
Yeah.
So if
and
I want
wiggle as well,
and so like if I want to just soak a bait in their face, I throw the yum dinger. If I want to fall a little faster, I throw the Senko.
Yeah.
The mac scent isn't even about the scent for me; it's the matte color. So like the color of those baits is more matted than shiny, and I find that sometimes even the same color bait, but in that more matte color, is different. I don't know why. Like actually their June bug, I will say, is different. A black blue fleck across every brand, pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But like the June bug in the mac scent is more purple than anybody else.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely way more purple.
Well, I think you know what's a good point too. It's less transparent. And like Scott Vermonter just asked, like, you know, out of all the Kitech colors, what's your favorite? So it's funny. I have like, actually, do I have it? I have one in my bags, but I don't think this one's it. But like, for instance, I have like a Bass Mafia bag of Kitechs of like 2.8s is one full bag, and then 3.3s is one full bag. And I got like a ton of colors in there. And really the way I evaluate the colors is not so much like the colors. Yeah, like I look at the colors. Like one of my favorites is like they make this green gizzard shad looking one now. I forget what they call it. It's like Tackle Warehouse greenback or something. So that's one of my favorites, Scott. You know, Tennessee shad is one of my favorites, Hitch. And then if I'm on like a little like more stained water, like the gizzard shad is freaking one. But it all relates to sort of the iridescent finish on it. So like how it reflects, and then transparency, right? Like the Kitech's got a bunch of salt in them, so none of them are like truly clear. A lot of them are kind of opaque, but some have more transparency. Like the Hitch, I think, and the Tennessee shad are a little more transparent, like plastic. So those are like my super clear water deals, bright sunny days, you know, transparency. But then the other ones are a little more, you know, cloudy day, a little more stained water, or the iridescent, you know, it's sunny and you want that reflection off the side. So like there's nuances like that too that freaking play into kind of like that coloration choice and all that.
It's crazy because I fish like only 3 colors of Kitechs.
Yeah, I got a ton. I keep buying different ones. Dude, you know what a naughty one is? Is they make this what the hell is it called? It's like gold Maranga. Oh, let me pull it up on Tackle Warehouse. You need to freaking try it. It's the ugliest freaking color ever, dude. but it's like any lake that has freaking green water that's just hair, like a hair stained, like Gunnersville. When you get a little coloration in like Smith or some of these spotted bass lakes, it's freaking naughty. I need to find that color because it's the weirdest freaking color. Fat impacts. I'm on Tackle Warehouse while I'm on a podcast. Nice job, Mike. I'm
That's
probably
all good.
gonna buy some stuff too.
Dude, I do it. Yeah, he's adding stuff to his cart right now, guys. He just wanted an excuse to get on there.
Yeah, right. I'm trying to multitask, right? That's what the hell is that color? Because I bought a Morocco gold, bro. That is like a naughty one. It's like this weird, trashy kind of yellow gold, and
Yeah, I'm
there's
looking at it
something
right now.
about it
Okay.
it's kind of cool. It's ugly, dude. Like when you look at it, it is not pretty, but that's one of my newer favorites. Pro green, pearl red. As long as we're going to do the colors, pro green, pearl red's one of my favorites. I'll throw the pink a bit. I got some of those. Tennessee shad is definitely Tackle Warehouse blue is like a standard that works, dude. I don't care how clear the water is or how dark the water is.
Yeah,
it works. Where is that other one? Gizzard shad is the one for a little more like stained kind of water. And
Yeah.
Tennessee shad, it's funny because I don't think the Tennessee shad picture does it justice on top.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't look like that in the picture.
Clear. That one and Hitch. Hitch is actually pretty clear as well. And that's another one that's absolutely killer. But that's kind of my selection, like with Kitex. I don't every once in a while buy some random pack to try out. And the fact is, like, they all work when they're on that Kitech bite. Like, yeah, you want to tweak your color,
Yeah.
but like as long as it looks halfway like a bait fish, you're going to catch them because you're throwing it from basically now till March or so when the water starts warming up, and it's killer.
I will say honestly, the worst case scenario, if you buy a color that you think doesn't work, just throw it on the back of a swim jig.
Yeah, or chatterbait or something, or you put it on your A rig or something.
Or put it on your A rig. Like if you put them on a chatterbait, flip them upside down. I definitely recommend that.
Yeah,
because it won't screw with the blade as bad, and it definitely makes it swim a little bit better. But I actually a lot of times will cut the tails off and make them more like a fluke.
Did I ever tell you about that weird deal I did with the Kitex with the spinner blade on the back?
Oh yeah, you were cutting the tails off and putting those.
That was freaking. I was amazed how well that worked. Now, granted, it's an expensive way to lose a blade and fish a Kitex, but like if you have kind of rotten Kitex where like you got pickerel or gar or something that bite the tails off, you freaking you screw in that blade, and I actually need to do that because I think so. Once again, going back to the minnow and like the forward facing stuff, like what you're gonna see now is a lot of variation, right? It's gonna be like, hey, these fish are floating, that's how you catch them, but how do we present differently? And the glide bait was a great example, right? So throwing the glide bait, doing like freaking the chop gliding, and that another one's gonna be throwing like boot tail swim baits like that Bass Mafia loaded just presenting a lot of these baits higher in the water column. Somebody just mentioned one, Michael Bradley, bucktail. So maybe not a bucktail exactly, but like little marabou jigs, like with stouter hooks on them. You see a lot more of those on Tackle Warehouse now. And he was actually talking about bucktail fishing, guys.
Yeah, I didn't even realize. I didn't catch that either.
Yeah, but like the bucktail, I think that's actually a sneaky one. The little marabou jigs that you guys do for smallmouth, where you put a little bit of a stick bait on the back, you're going to see that more for largemouth because once again, there is no line, right? There are no rules. Yeah. We make the rules. The fish don't make the rules. But you're going to see a lot more variations in those presentations, like the tailed in the butt of the swim bait kind of thing. One thing I want to do too is Buka makes burrito. It's this big silicone monster it looks like the old Storm freaking swim baits, right? Yeah. And that one, I got that on 20-pound fluorocarbon. It sinks like a rock, but I can burn that on the top, dude, and keep it up there for those fish. And once again, bigger drawing power, and I don't think they're seeing that. So playing with those and varying this like minnow dangling, maybe attaching blades to it. We're already seeing that with terminal. I just made a jig actually for Gambler. I don't know if you saw that, but the live rocker jig. So it's a hybridized jig that has a flat head. Do I have? No, they're in the boat, I think. Let me see if I got one. I don't think I do. It's a hybridized jig, so basically it's got a flat head that almost looks kind of like a scrounger lead head.
Okay.
Has a little fin on the top like the owner roller ball, so it has that rocking motion, but it does a couple things. One, you can spin it just like the minnow, and it rocks back and forth. Two, and I'm going to put up a video on it shortly, is you can actually like reel it with a very soft rod shake. And what it does is instead of the jig rocking so much, the jig rocks slightly, but if you put like a fluke style bait that's kind of thin on it, the tail on that fluke, as long as it's a straight tail, actually swims kind of like a scrounger would, you know? And then the other thing you can do, and this is one thing that hasn't gotten talked about a bit, but it's not as mainstream. And you need a certain kind of fish for it, but dropping to fish versus swimming over fish, right? You can get these fish, as long as it isn't like 30, 40 foot deep, to go down to a bait as much as you can get them to come up. So you're over their head, you're coming over.
There is times they will
hang
down, yeah.
You drop and have them trail it. So the flat head on that live rocker acts just like a Ned, right? So it'll drop down, it does this little shimmy deal, and then it stands up. Obviously, it doesn't stand every time you drop it. Like, I'm a realist. I'm not going to fake goods. But in theory, it drops down and your bait actually stands up on the bottom. You can shake it a couple times, see if they engage and commit, and then move forward. Am I freaking crazy, dude? But so you see the red jacket behind me?
Yeah.
How I managed to set myself up where on this little small screen that I'm doing this on, it looks like I got a damn Santa hat on, dude.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes you move just right. So you know,
ho ho ho, right? Like,
dude, it's funny the live rocker head. So one of the things that I do a lot is I'll fish like a 2.8 Kitech on a Ned head.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to use a swim bait head, or I don't have one, or a lot of times I have. You know, I have a 1/16 or a 1/8 ounce Ned, but I don't really have that small of a swim bait head. So I've kind of been doing that kind of thing a lot because I'll fish it with like a lot of those flat, you know, face Ned heads. But this looks like something I could definitely. I might have to.
It's something different. I'm not saying it's the next coming of whatever. You know,
dude, I like
it
that.
Gives you a little bit of like because that's the other thing too, dude. And I don't want to call myself a victim, but I'm party to it too. I'm a 20 rods on deck guy, right? So like any opportunity, dude,
I hear you, dude.
that I have to sort of dual purpose something or like be able to do more things with one thing, like you got to do that, dude, because I get sick, especially this time of year, bro. Like I know it's not as cold as up by you, but tying a freaking loop knot when it's 35 freaking degrees out sucks, dude. Your fingers stop working. You catch one fish, you're like, awesome. And then it's like, dude, I can't reel my reel because I can't move my fingers. So tying knots just absolutely sucks. So if you have something that can kind of like be dual purpose, I smoked them on it too. Actually, I'm going to put up some videos. It does some different things, you know, and that's what it's all about, is solving little problems. It's not everybody's problems. It's different problems for everybody. And it solves kind of a little kind of range of problems. The other thing too, is it was made specifically in my eyes when I put it together for like now, like it's a smaller hook, but a stouter hook. So it's made for big fish, but smaller presentations. And from now until like March, like when they're in that Ned sort of minnow dangle kind of moment, that's what it's made for, dude. You put a little 3-inch freaking minnow on there, and you can drop to them. You can swim it over the top, or you can straight swim it like a Kitech, and it's gonna make that tail shimmy.
Now, what size hook is that?
On the 1/8, 3/16, and quarter, it's a 1/0, but it's stout. It's not like too stout for a spinning rod, but like I've caught like we tested it out this past summer, and it wasn't the best scenario for it, but we caught like a 9.5 and an 8 on it, and I cranked on them, dude, because I was trying to open up the hook, and that thing didn't budge, dude. And it sticks them real good because it's just those little tiny like Ned style hook, right? It's a 1. On the 3/8, we had to go up to a 2/0 because that head, like in order to make the mold, you have to have a little bigger hook on there, otherwise it doesn't accommodate it. So there's the 3/0 on there. We have gotten some requests. We're going to see kind of how it sells. It's been pretty good thus far. I've had really good success with it. We'll see how other guys react to it. But with all the focus on these bigger style baits, Sakamadas, Fish Arrow makes a really good one. We're looking at putting like a 3 to 5/0 in there, so you can put like a big dong on there. You know,
right?
For freaking cool right now.
Yeah, no, I might have to put a couple orders in for these, because what I like, and I will say one thing I like about Gambler too, is you guys don't like, the Gambler doesn't make 75 colors of heads. Like,
Yeah, it's
you
just,
get I honestly, it drives me nuts, because a lot of times I would rather you just give me lead or white and let me, like, or black. Like, I hate the fact that, like, sometimes I can only find a chartreuse head in the head that I want. I'm like, I don't want it to be chartreuse. I want it to be black. I want it to blend in. I don't want the bait to be what they're looking at, not the freaking head.
honestly, dude, I'm a straight lead guy. It's cheaper.
Yep.
It's simple, and I don't see, like, I've run, the only exception I'll throw in is there is something to having the 3D eyes. I think they do
The eyes do make a difference.
3D
Yes.
eyes, but
Yep.
at the same time though, if I can only have one jig, I'll just take a freaking lead jig, like a straight lead pack. And that's even with my Neds, dude.
Yep.
Like, I don't even think Nichols makes it anymore, but they used to make that Clint Davis that I really like in a straight unpainted. And bro, I bought those by the bag. Like, I would buy tons of those, and I'd throw them with a green pumpkin freaking stick bait or something, or like whatever
Yep.
for smallmouth, and I did just fine. Just fine.
See, up here we have the disadvantage of, like, certain states completely ban it, and some states
I
do
forgot about
suddenly.
Yeah.
So we can use them here in Vermont if it's attached to the hook, is really the law here. It's weird. So, like, we can't use lead sinkers. So, like, drop shots, we got to use tungsten technically.
That sucks.
Well, so I shouldn't say this, but Fish and Game, if you're watching this, earmuffs. A lot of guys just paint their lead with nail polish.
That's, yeah. Well,
A lot of us just use, like, high gloss black nail polish and paint the lead weights, because then at a distance they look like a tungsten weight because they're black.
fighting the man, one drop shot weight at a time.
That's why I like the silver, like, lead baits, because if I'm going somewhere that bans it, I just paint up a couple with some nail polish. I literally have nail polish up here, like, ready to go, and I just paint them up, because then if you hold them up, they're like, oh, he's using a.
That's why I love Alabama. They won't make those rules.
Like, that's the other, like, A-rig, same thing. We're only allowed 2 hooks.
Yeah, in Tennessee it's actually 3. I always got to watch myself when I shoot up there, because I'll have one in the rod locker and go to get it out. I'm like, dude, I got to swap these out with teasers. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, for me, like, 2 hooks on an A-rig is kind of like, they're gonna hit more of the. I'm gonna end up spending more time aggravated, because all they're doing is hitting dummies all day.
I don't know that, dude. You put that big one in the middle, dude, and they usually
True.
a big one.
That is
That
true.
bike's about actually ready to start off. I got a really crazy A-rig, dude. I don't know. I keep looking for baits that I don't have in here. My buddy built a freaking A-rig. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called the Stealth. It's made out of it's pricey, but it's interesting. It's made out of it's not mono, but it's like, it's the crazy, like, leader material that the saltwater guys use for, like, sailfish and stuff like that. So it's pliable, but it's much more stiff, or it has a stiffer consistency.
Yep.
I don't even know what an example. It's almost more like tubing, right?
Yep.
And his concept is the head's clear, transparent. It's a plastic kind of like main head, and snaps are super reinforced. But the concept is like it's finesse, right? And I've been talking about this quite a bit, like the heavy finesse. So you're using the same sort of style baits. You're either downsizing them, you're playing with transparency, things along those lines, but you're still throwing it on 20-pound fluorocarbon in that. But it's a real cool concept, and we're just getting into the time of year where that's going to play, and I'm excited to kind of try it out and see. I always like throwing the Picassos, right? Picasso has really made a lot of different really cool A-rigs. Their price points are up there, but
Picasso makes some good stuff for sure.
I like their A-rigs, dude. They make the schoolie ball, the finesse schoolie. Like, they make some cool ones, and they're diverse and different. But that Stealth rig, like I said, the price point's up there, but it's super freaking unique, and it's subtle, dude. Like, I've always been a believer, and this comes from my flipping stuff. We played with a lot of different types of braid, right? Not so much for when, the bite's really good and you're pitching into a mat and they eat it on the drop, but for when we're doing all that yo-yo shenanigans kind of thing. And we found very quickly that braid that was smoother, that was not ridged, when you're doing it in those mats, you get like 2 bites to your buddy's 1. Like, I throw And it doesn't, like, I don't want anybody to go break off and get pissed at me, but like I throw what's called Daiwa Samurai braid, and it's this waxy. It's not like a fusion style line or like a hybrid line. It's still braid, but it's a much smoother kind of waxier braid. And I always upgrade too. Like if you're gonna throw 65, go up to 80 in the Daiwa, and those, and don't throw it around trees, and don't throw it around hardcover because you'll
lose it. Yeah,
you're gonna break it off.
I've used that braid. Yep, I've had that problem.
But for vegetation mats, like pads for hydrilla, for junk mats like eelgrass and stuff, it's just fine. But there's definitely a difference in the bites that you get to close, and how that translates to that A-rig is, I think, like anything, you throw a War Eagle spinnerbait, you throw XYZ spinnerbait, you get more bites on the War Eagle. It's like a downsized wire. It breaks on like 3 fish, but you get more bites. And I think that same thing's going to hold true with this A-rig. They've seen so many heavy wire A-rigs that if you go and you throw that same thing that's slightly different, that heavy finesse concept applied to that A-rig, I think it's going to make a difference. But I haven't had the opportunity to find out. It looks pretty badass though.
There's a lot of that though. Like I've found ways to fish like, traditional power fishing baits, but if you fish them a different way, like I call it like finesse power fishing, but yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do that, like, because at the end of the day, there is days where I don't think it matters. Like I think sometimes we give the fish too much credit. I think you could throw a Coors Light can with a treble hook and they're going to smash it. But then there's other days where you have to work in a specific way to entice them to bite or be more natural or subtle. Yeah. And that's where, like, especially lakes that are pressured, like we don't get, Gunnersville pressure, but we get, there's the difference for me is I'm fishing sometimes 600-acre lakes.
Right.
So it only takes 5 boats to pressure that lake because there's only so much real estate that you could fish in.
Yeah, it's all relative.
So
like I tell my buddies who are always like, dude, you caught some 10-pounders. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's in Florida. And like, that's like, you have that potential. Like everything's relative, whether it's pressure, whether it's size of fish, everything's relative to like where you're at. Right. And that's where it's cool because the factors change. I can go to one lake in Alabama that's this small non-tournament lake and it's freaking balls to the wall. Right. But then you go to Gunnersville and you're like, man, why aren't they eating this bright freaking red and pink spinnerbait the way they were on that lake? Yeah. So like and that's the game we play. That's what we got those fun, or the live bait, bro. The way they react to that live bait, and even that, it was kind of crazy in the experience with Caleb. Is what we didn't look at him on forward facing. We ended up seeing some, right, and we played around with it a little. A lot of the fish we caught were just you go on grass line and you throw your live bait out there. But even when it came to the live bait, these fish weren't 100% committal. Right? Like it's live. There's literally a small hook through the snout. Caleb has a really unique, I really recommend you guys want to put the video up to go watch it. He has a very interesting rigging technique with his drop shot, the way he allows that live bait to get free motion and the way he rigs it. But even in that ultra natural context, these fish still like wouldn't commit. Like we didn't catch every fish we saw. We didn't catch every fish that was in the ditch, So it was pretty eye-opening, dude. Like it's not that they're so smart, it's that they're just kind of moody, dude.
Well, and so I will say it's funny. A lot of people, I actually have completely flipped on my mentality. So for a while I was like, I'm moving south because I want to fish all year. But I've realized that in a way I'm kind of spoiled up here because my fish get a roof over their head for about 3 months and they forget that a Senko is danger. They forget that a chatterbait and a swim jig is danger. So like you can get to the end of the year, September, October for us, they won't bite a wacky rig, or at least not at the consistency that they would in the beginning of the year, or a swim jig or a chatterbait. You go out there in April and you throw that same bait in the same area and you'll catch 10 fish because they forgot that was danger because they spent the last 4 or 5 months just chilling, relaxing, and their brains aren't that big and they don't have that much processing power. So they just forgot that every time I bite this black and blue stick thing that comes out of my face hurts and I end up in the sky. So they forget to be afraid, I think, in some cases, because
Yeah.
I definitely have noticed like the springtime, like everybody talks about the spawn like it's the next coming, but in reality for us northern guys, it's because, and they haven't been getting picked on by ice fishermen. Those bass haven't seen a human in 3 months, so they forget that they need to be afraid of us.
Well, it's that, and it's seasonal. It's sort of like the
Yeah.
perfect storm, right? So everything's happening at once. I'll tell you what, my I don't know, like I'll probably never be able to retire or what. I don't know, but either retiring or I'm going to save enough money to for 1 year to do where I go down. So like I go down to Florida, right, in like January, February, and I'm down there, and then basically I work my way up. So
Work up to the
in
north. Yep.
Florida, I come back to Alabama for like March, April, May, maybe beginning of June, and then I gradually go north, and then I end up in Wisconsin for like 3 months, dude, and do this seasonal movement where I just get to go and fish my way up, because that's like, I mean, that's killer, dude, because you're basically just riding like the climax of every freaking fishing season.
You're
dude.
basically perpetually fishing the spawn for 3 months
The
straight.
spawn is like the best like month after the post spawn, 2 months,
Yep.
you know, and then you kind of turn around and you work your way back south. But
Yeah, I said that's what I said. If I won the Powerball, like everybody talks about,
that's what I was thinking. I need to buy lotto, dude.
yeah, like if I told my wife, I'm like, my wife wants to be a nurse and she's going to school to be a nurse, and I was like, here's the deal: if you want to continue working and I win the Powerball, you can be a traveling nurse, and I'll follow you around to wherever you get assigned, and then I'll fish that place.
There you
and then
go.
We'll just drive around. Like I wouldn't have. The funny part is I would never have like a lavish house or like a Ferrari. Like I would have a fleet of boats and
Yeah.
kayaks. I'd have a garage that's huge, but it would be full of like trucks hooked to boats that like, okay, I want to go troll for trout. I have a trout boat. I want to go fish big water. I'm going to have a fiberglass boat. I want to go fish ship boat. I'll have a jet boat. Like I'll have like a fleet of stuff, and then I would just travel around. I wouldn't, and it'd be the same thing. Like I always said that would be cool to like, for me, it's like this time of year, I'm thinking about trying to come down to where you are. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the whole thing is like,
Well, and then you work your way south, you know.
and then yeah,
I was
once it
wanting
gets
to live in
warm-
my truck a little. Like, if I was younger and freaking like just didn't have things like that, you know, that you need to do, and for like now, like the girl's cool, and she's can't be mobile with her job and stuff now. But like at one point, like just to kind of like roam around like a freaking hippie, maybe not live totally in the truck, but like I'm down for that. Like I'm easy. Like I'll get a Subway sandwich and freaking go to bed at 8 o'clock and wake up at 4 and just go get after it. It'd be freaking ridiculous, dude.
So a little foreshadowing is I bought a cap for my truck for that reason.
Yeah, I wanted to do that too. Did you end up sleeping in your truck in that?
I haven't yet. I just got it, but I'm actually going to be doing an ice fishing camp out with it. So I bought one of those like Chinese diesel heaters, and I've seen a lot of like the overlanding videos of how to rig it so you can run it into your cap and not kill yourself with carbon monoxide. And I've done it before. So we used to go to Lake Ontario every year. My dad used to go up there, and they would stay in Oswego Harbor, and they slept in the boat. And we went up there camping one year, and we just slept in the back of the truck. It's actually not bad because I have the cot. So I bought one of those like camping cots that like folds out. Yeah. So basically half of my truck bed is going to be a bed, right? And then I'm going to have storage on the other side where I'm going to have a couple of bins where I keep like just bedding stuff and then extra fishing stuff and clothes. And then I have the heater now that I'm going to be able to run it. But my plan is, and actually Scott Vermonter was saying earlier, there's a reservoir down south about 2.5 hours south of me. That's a 1,600 acre reservoir, and it's got a ton of smallmouth. It's a huge place, but it's all state land.
Right.
So, and it's completely like they set up campsites like a state park would have where you'd have to pay, but you don't have to pay. It's just, they just cut out all these places, put picnic tables and fire rigs.
Yep.
And you can just go park and fish. So my plan is configure my kayak trailer where I can lock my gear because I don't trust humans. and I sleep pretty soundly, and I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to redneck open up the back of my cap and start shooting people to get
Yeah.
away from my kayak. But the idea is I'm going to do a bunch of camp outs where I go down on because I now have I ended up getting. I know we had talked about this at one point that my dream was like to get on like a 4-10 hour shift schedule.
Mhm.
So I finally got that. So now I have Friday, Saturday, and Sundays off.
Nice.
So I'm going to leave Friday mornings, fish all day, pass out in my truck, get up, fish in the morning, and then go home.
That's awesome.
So it's going to be cool because I'm going to be able to do it. I got my buddy Bobby in Massachusetts. I'm going to be able to drive down there, fish like Western Mass a little bit. I might even do it this winter in the Cape because the Cape never really freezes.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And a lot of guys. So one of the things I really want to do is one of the guys that I talk to a lot. They do striper fishing in the Cape.
Yeah, I heard that's ridiculous there. Yeah,
and they do it in their kayaks.
Wow.
So they go up and they're catching like 20, 30 pound stripers in a freaking 10-foot kayak.
Towed around like
just getting jerked all around. Yeah. He said the crazy thing though is apparently the sharks come up with them.
Yeah, that'd be spooky as hell.
So he's like, you're literally like fishing over top of a hammerhead in a 10-foot plastic boat. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't have predators around here like that. Like I am the biggest thing in the water, not the other way around. But that's something that I'm going to be making content next year. A lot of is trying to go do a bunch of these, like, just like you said, like that would be my ideal thing. Would be able to just, if I had like unlimited funds, I wouldn't live like a lavish lifestyle. I would literally get in my truck and drive to a place. Like I would just be like, okay, I'm going to Alabama. I'm going to fish for a week. And if I had like Powerball money, then I would just fly home, spend a week with my kids, fly back to my truck, go fish some more.
Just bop around.
And just like travel around the country. Cause I always like my dream, if I could do like, if I had like a retirement dream would be to like catch a bass in every state.
That's kind of fun.
Like literally, and even if it doesn't have to be a monster, just like
you just want to
be able to catch
experience, dude.
Just literally be able to say, I caught it. Because like places like Alaska is weird. Like Alaska's smallmouth are considered an invasive species, and there's a kill order on them.
That's crazy. Yeah, I heard that about is it Montana or Washington? Actually, it's the same.
Yeah, that's because of a lot of those like trout fisheries, like the big, because the bass will just destroy a trout population because the trout can't compete with the bass. So
one of my favorite trips was actually like that. There's so Pickwick's over there from me, and there's a small impoundment south of Pickwick on the God, I forget what it's called, the John Beeberry something waterway, whatever the hell it's called. It's in BFE, dude. It's in nowhere. And this was like a few years ago, and now I have 2 phones, so now I'll have service probably if I go over there. But back then, like it was Nowhereville. They have a freaking campsite, and they shut down 2/3 of the campsites when winter hits because nobody wants to be there, right? Yep. And it's this cool lake. It's got spots. It's not gigantic. It's not small. And it's called Bay Springs. And I went over there and I got a campsite. First, me and the girl went over there. We scouted, stayed one night. It was the worst camping trip ever. It pissed rain all night, dude. We're soaked. And we're like, dude, we're just going home. So I'm like, I got to come back here, right? So I set up, I needed a vacation because I'd never like disappear. I was going to shoot content, so it's kind of workish, but whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I set up a trip. The weather was perfect. It was going to be 3 days, and it was going to be like 20 to 30 at night, maybe 45, 50 during the day. I'm like, dude, I'm going. And I slept in my truck every night. And I'll give you a tip. So you can do it better now, but my trick was that I would have long underwear, pants, and snow pants, and then like triple layers on top. And every night I had a whole stack of freaking like a bulk pack of hand warmers, right? So every night I'd get out 4 hand warmers. They'd go 2 in the freaking cargo pockets on my snow pants, 2 at the top, and then I got the dog with me too. So we're all bundled up, just freaking laying there, and we slept in the truck for freaking 3 nights. And bro, I had no phone service in the middle of nowhere. And we one day I think I caught 2 fish. One day I had 20 pounds. Another day I caught like 3 fish. It was a grinder, right? Like, but it was so much fun. Literally, there for 2 nights. I think the 3rd night there was someone else in the campground, but for 2 nights there was not another freaking person in the campground. And there's like 30 spots open, and it's right on the lake. So like, There's no light, dude. The sun's
Yep.
up there, and like ice is like glistening. It was gorgeous. It was quiet. I'd light a fire and eat freaking crappy turkey sandwiches from Walmart, dude.
Yep.
It was badass. Like
That's literally my plan for next year. So one of the things I found is, and that's where this is gonna sound like kind of funny, but like I can't compete with the big guys in YouTube, and I know that like everybody has a premium on their time. So what I like to do is try to differentiate myself. And one of the things I learned is like I don't want to be a travel vlogger, but being able to like I've learned that like documenting the whole day. Like instead of just making a video, oh, I caught a fish. Oh, I caught a fish. This is how I caught the fish. Have a nice day. Like literally showing like, okay, I'm camping out. This is where we're setting up site. This is where we're hanging out. Like do an actual like this is a day in the life video instead of it. And that's part of what it was is like I did that Cayuga trip, and I've done a couple other camping trips like that where it's fun, and that's why I got the cat, because it allows me to stealth camp like anywhere.
That's my kind of deal. That's why if I get a new truck, I'm gonna probably do that because I was sleeping in my truck. I got a Ram 2500, and actually the seats like it's
not bad. I've done
it's
it.
not bad. You kick it all the way back, and it's not that bad. But if you had that little thing in the back, it's your own personal house. And actually, what I was gonna mention is like. So I was talking about the hand warmers, the new electronic ones where you run them off a USB power pack. That's 1,000 times better. You put that joker in your pocket, you're probably getting like crazy radiation stuff, but whatever, dude.
So Ozark Trail makes a hand warmer that's like $10 at Walmart, and it's rechargeable battery banks.
Yeah, those are freaking sweet. And then you just do a couple of those, dude. And it like I don't think you can do 10 degrees kind of deal, but you're not going to be on a boat if it's freaking 10 degrees at night, right? So like. 20, 30 degrees, and like the dog is actually very helpful, dude, because he's warm and freaking breathes hot air. So,
and the funny part is he just wants to get closer to you at that point. He's trying to get warm anyway.
I got gear for him to stay warm, and I'll throw a couple. He has a little pouch on one of his things, so I'll throw a couple hand warmers in there. But it was just fun, dude. And like the no phone service is nice with the work that I do because I it's very hard.
You can actually unplug.
Yeah, bro. Like,
it's funny that like that's something that somebody called me out at work. So I work in an office with mostly like programmers and nerds and stuff like that. So like nature isn't their thing. And it's like, so I talk about how I fish to get away from like society and people. And they're like, dude, you do YouTube. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you're fishing with a $500 camera in front of you, a $500 camera behind you, a lithium battery running the camera. They're like, you're fishing with more electronics than I have at my house in your kayak to film all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a funny point, but I'm by myself.
Modern escapism, dude. It's whatever. Like, we all get our kicks in our own way, right? So.
But the thing is, the hardest part is for that is like I had to figure out, and that's why I bought the batteries and stuff that I have, is that like in the kayak, I have literally a 30 amp hour lithium to run my GoPros.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about charging them, because when you go on trips, like we were just talking about, trying to freaking pack enough GoPro batteries.
Oh, it's a mess.
To get through a weekend, like it's painful. But like that lithium battery I have will last me like 2 or 3 nights, no problem.
Yeah, that's what I found too, having a backup so you can last. And then, in that situation, I think they had a plug because it was like an RV park in that.
Yeah.
But it was like in the woods, but having that plug I needed for the boat. But even with the way I set up my boat, I got that power pool charged and I can last like probably 2 days, 2.5 days. Yeah. My electronics battery would probably go out. But yeah, and that, you know what though, that's kind of the fun part where you're talking about the vlog and like the full thing. Like people get into the hack stuff. I know like I get into it. Like I don't watch videos about it, but figuring out once again the problem solution thing, right? It's like, I want to do X. Like, I want to go on this jaunt in the middle of nowhere. How do I achieve that? I got to stay warm. I got to bring freaking toast bread and freaking turkey slices so I can eat food because I'm not making fire to eat hot dogs. Like, how do you stay charged? How do you actually film it and capture the whole experience? What kind of challenges are you going to run into that you can kind of plan for? And it's fun. It's old school, like dude stuff, right? Like it's all like kind of like man roughing it kind of deal in our own little new school 2024 way.
Yeah, because I will say I went to Cayuga in October, and we stayed in a campground, dude. It was literally 30 degrees and raining all weekend, and I was in a freaking tent.
and you can't get new clothes. You can't dry off.
Yeah, I got nowhere to be. I'm in a
I was
tent
in
the
the
whole time.
bathroom for 10 minutes just to feel dry, dude.
Oh, dude! And the worst part was, so it was an actual, established campground, but the bathroom next to where our campsite was, I don't even know if you could call it a bathroom. Like, this thing was literally like they dug a hole in the ground, dumped a bit of that blue chem shit they put
Oh,
in the camper, and like all the toilets are like in this one tank. So like, dude, it smelled so bad that from 30 yards away you start going.
Oh my god.
So like, I had to walk 40 yards to the other bathroom because that one was so bad that I was more likely to throw up in the
You're
yard.
so bougie, dude.
Dude, it was bad.
Unbelievable.
It was bad. But that's the thing, dude. That was because it was there. When I'm doing like these other trips, dude, I've definitely found a tree. I have dude wipes in my glove box for that reason. But no, like you said, that's one of the things that I'm doing for content next year is like, that's kind of like, I guess it's a surprise, guys, that we're going to be doing more of that. But like engineer, like that heater thing, I can't put the heater in my truck because it has an exhaust. It's diesel exhaust. You don't want to be inhaling diesel exhaust all night. So I found overlanding videos where guys take these like tire steps, bolt the heater to that, and then run ductwork into the cap so that you can get the heat, because it's a blower heat, but it has all the exhaust stuff so you don't kill yourself. It's stuff like that I'm going to do entire videos on, like, this is how I rig this is how I'm going to keep power for the weekend. And I'm very like low maintenance on food. Like you said, like I will live on Cliff Bars and turkey sandwiches for the whole weekend. Like that doesn't bother me at all. I would rather do that because I don't have to try to figure out how to keep actual food cold.
What am I going to cook? Oh yeah, dude.
Or try to find somewhere to buy food, because honestly, a lot of times you spend way more money trying to keep it cold than be able to heat it later than just.
Yeah.
I usually just get, and I don't even buy like good turkey. I'm buying like the crap that's in the plastic Tupperware that processed hell. Like,
I need to.
It's not even probably actual turkey. It's just like cardboard that they flavored like turkey. But
I want to do some more of that. I meant to do it the past couple of years, and it's just I need to prioritize better with some things, and maybe not being able to do X or Y, but like pick things like that to do, because I had a blast. And then you get in the zone too. I've always found if you can fish 2 days consecutively, usually your third day is going to be epic, dude.
Yep.
Because you finally you step away, you get out of like this trench of work and like, what do I got to do? Who do I got to call? What are you focused on? And you get that one day and maybe you catch them, maybe you figure some things out. You see it. That second day is like, let me learn. I'm finally starting to feel a little free, a little loose. Like my head's clear. Let me go scramble around. And then that third day, you're like, dude, I'm in my place.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go back to the truck and freaking sit next to a fire or eat a turkey sandwich, and it's going to be so quiet. I'm not going to hear another word unless I speak it. Like the dog might bark, right? But like you get in that zone and all you're focused on is what's happening, and like how do I catch fish, and your goals become really, really simple. And it's amazing the difference that can make in your perspective when you're trying to catch little stupid greenfish, right?
It's funny. That's why the kayak world, that's where I think a lot of the allure of the kayak is. Like, you're more in the element in a kayak than you are in the boat. You know what I mean? So you tend to connect with nature quicker because you're just there. You know what I mean? Like you're limited too. Like you have limited mobility, so you have to kind of pick the water apart. So you have to think and listen. But that's one of the things, like, I'll tell my buddy when I'm fishing with him or people I'm fishing with, is I'll like, hold on, listen, just shut up for a minute. It's like the old school, like, stop closing the doors in the boat because you're going to scare the fish.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, listen. And they're like, what? And I'm like, hear that popping noise? That's bluegill popping on pads. That means there's bluegill here. Like, you pick up, like, you wake up in the morning, you hear bullfrogs. And like, oh, maybe there's
you go full Robert Frost on them, dude.
Yeah, you start hearing, like, nature.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool. But, dude, you should figure out how to make that happen. And there's all kinds of places up here in the north. Come up here and fish, dude.
I could go roam around and be a hippie in a truck. My buddy Rob Matsura, who shoots the MLF stuff, he kind of does that, dude. He basically lives in his truck. He comes and stays with us from time to time. Yep. He's got some people he always stays with, but he's like 100% like that typecast of like a free spirit, right? Like he's just kind of fluid and he just roams around, and I've always liked that. Like it's because I I guess I'm like kind of prissly and bougie in certain ways, but it's easy. It'd be easy for me to fall into that function. And I love Subway, so like all I need is
Yeah.
Subway and freaking my
Dude, it's
to go
it,
wrong.
the thing is about it is like what's cool about it is it allows you to just do your thing, but it's disconnecting. But like I can't. There's no way I could like. I always said I want to go to like Alaska and like rent a cabin and see if I could live off the land, but it would be like for 3 weeks. I couldn't do it for a like lifetime, but I would love to be able to like my long term dream would, like you said, be able to just like get in the truck and go for a month
Yeah,
and
get a
just
little taste.
travel, hit campgrounds, and not even like I don't even necessarily care about bucket list fisheries because there's a lot of people that don't realize like I live 20 minutes from Lake Champlain. Like when Bassmasters they're fishing in Ticonderoga, New York, that's 20 minutes that way.
Wow.
Like I mean, realistically, I can get to the ferry and be there in an hour. Like I'm at a bucket list world class fishery, and I fish 200-acre ponds way more. I didn't even fish Lake Champlain last year
Yeah.
because I would rather go fish these little ponds and explore the weird little pockets and the weird little fisheries that we have, and go deep into this like lily pad field in my kayak where I'm like having to paddle my ass off to get out because I'm buried in grass and I can't use my pedal drive, than to take, a bass boat out on Champlain to catch fish because I'll admit, like some of the biggest fish I've caught have been in those little ponds
Oh yeah, you find some sneak holes, dude.
because they
But
don't
you
get
got to do your homework though, and that's what's nice too. Is like technology allows us to do that more efficiently, like the Google Maps stuff, and like we can hunt down those fisheries, and then it's just the risk of I'm going to go here for 4 hours and try it. My buddy, we shoot, or I helped to shoot and produce like a TV show for my buddy JT Kenny, and it's called JT Kenny's Florida Bass, and so he's doing that in Florida, right? And it's not like little tiny places, but there's a
Right.
ton of like smaller lakes in Florida that don't get maybe
notoriety.
they don't want the attention, but like they don't
Yep.
get highlighted. It's Okeechobee, Kissimmee. You go like he does a lot on headwaters and that in that Palm Bay area because they're great fisheries, right? Stick Marsh headwaters, Three Forks. But one of his goals or like mission statements with the show is to go and fish some of these smaller fisheries. So like he knows some of them. I help to find some of them because I like kind of like jaunting around Florida and finding little places. But like that's a cool proposition, dude. Texas is a lot like that from what I hear. You got your big lakes and that, but there's all kinds of little like medium to small little lakes that have perfectly good boat ramps, perfectly good accessibility. Maybe they don't have the mapping and stuff, but they offer those opportunities for giants too. Like I like that kind of stuff, dude. Hunting around and because dude, in the end, I'm a millennial at heart, right? I want to catch bigs, I want to learn stuff, but it's about the experience, right? And that's fun to me, like capturing that experience, having that experience, and hopefully you get the bonus of catching some big fish or figuring out like a little pattern or something.
And I'm probably gonna. I didn't realize what time it is. I'm probably gonna end it here. But the last thing I'll put it out there is like, and it sounds like there's no way this is true, but I actually would rather go to a lake that I've never fished, never seen, don't even have that much information on. I have just as much fun catching a 12-incher on a lake I've never fished as I do like a 5-pounder on a lake that I fish every weekend.
I agree with that because it's a new experience.
It's like because I feel like a sense of accomplishment.
100%, dude.
Like, oh, I figured this bite out. Even if I never catch another fish there or never go there again, like going, that's actually why that Somerset place, like that's why I want to camp there is one, it's free and I don't have to worry about, because like you and me and you have had these conversations, like if I could duct tape it and build it and not spend the money on it, I'm going to do that. And the same thing with like camping. I don't want to spend $20 a night on a campsite and then find out it's raining and then feel like I wasted money. Whereas this place is free. I can just show up and camp overnight, but it's 1,600 acres, which is a lot because I'm going to be fishing it in a kayak because my bass boat's down. So that's going to take a while to figure out. So I want to go do that. But like being able to go to a place that I've never caught a fish at and be able to, I'm actually releasing a series in May where it's called Breaking Bombazine, which is literally Lake Bombazine here in Vermont. Actually, Milliken fished it this year, and like Brian Latimer fished it last year. It's a lake that everybody else has huge success on, and I fucking suck at it.
I can relate to that.
Hate it. Like, it's a nemesis lake. It's a lake that I just cannot figure out. And I'm literally making an entire video series about how much I suck at this lake and trying to figure it out.
That's fun though. That's creative.
Because like people don't show that on YouTube. Like some guys do. Some guys show their failures and stuff like that. But like in one of the episodes, I hooked my finger. That's pretty much the only thing I did in that video.
The only thing you hooked, huh?
But I'm trying to like show like, yeah, I only caught 12 inches today, and this is why I broke it. But I break it down. Like I kind of do a little bit more scientific work. I broke it into zones, and I only fished a certain zone per episode. And I was like, okay, I'm breaking this area down. This is what I'm trying to figure out. These are the baits that are working. But I'm starting to do that with more lakes because I do feel like it's not only cool to make that video, but challenging yourself to take on something that normally you would just be like, yeah, I'm not going back there because it sucks. Don't let it suck. Like, do everything you can to try to conquer the lake. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to do next year is do more of that stuff. Cool. Where I'm putting myself in a situation where there's adversity. That's why I do tournaments. That's why tournament fishing is the way it is because you're an adrenaline junkie and you're trying to compete against others and yourself the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've started to transition my channel into more of like, let's be honest, I'm not going to be able to catch a 50-pound bag. I'm in Vermont. The state record's 10 pounds. Caught in 1983.
You better get after it, dude. You got a lot of work to do.
That's the thing. Well, you know what's funny, dude, is here we have to kill the fish.
Huh?
We have to kill it and send it to Fish and Game.
Oh, to certify the right. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I can't hear you, dude.
After a certain point, it mutes my mic. I don't know what's going on. That was really weird. Can you hear me now?
Now I can.
Yeah. For some reason, every once in a while, it'll kick me off, and then it will like switch my mic. I don't know why. But what I was saying is, like, if I caught a state record, I would take a video of it. I would show the scale. I would talk about it, and then I would put it back. Because the question I ask people, and this is something that I think pisses some fishermen off, but I'm like, I've asked guys from Vermont, who holds the state record for most? No one can tell. And I'm like, I'm not going to kill a fish that probably lived 5 years untouched, outsmarted so many fishermen, so that I can get my name on a list that no one fucking knows about.
Yeah.
I just hate that shit. Like in some states, you can just bring it to the ramp and then they weigh it, certify it, and release it. Yeah, I would do that. But here, I would catch a state record. I would show it as a state record. I would obviously put it on YouTube as a state record. I'll get heckled, and everybody in the chat will tell me that I faked it and made a scale up or CGI'd it or something like that. But I don't really care because I would know, and then I would release it. Like, I'm not really about big fish as much as like just trying to conquer the lake. You know what I mean? Like being able to, in my mind, being able to, and that's the premise of that video series is like, I want to catch that lake. I set a bar of 70 inches because I'm in a kayak and scale sucks. So if I can catch 70 inches in 5 different outings, then I've conquered the lake because I've consistently caught, a good bag multiple times.
Yeah, no, cool.
Because let's be honest, you could go to a lake and catch 100 inches in one day, or 30-pound or 40-pound bag, and never catch a fish there again. Like sometimes it just happens that way.
That is true. It happens.
So, but all right, guys, Mikey's got a bunch of stuff to do. I actually, in case you guys are wondering why I'm randomly here on a Monday when I said I wasn't going to be back until Thursday,
that was my request.
I've been trying to get him on a live stream since like July, but the man is so busy that he's like, dude, I have Monday, and I'm like, you know what, we'll make it work.
I appreciate you doing that, dude. It was nice kind of chatting and hanging out, dude. It has been too long.
So, and at some point, someday, when I get enough financially able to do it, I'm gonna either go down there or convince Mikey to come up here to catch some fish.
The room is open, dude. Freaking all you gotta do is fly in, or freaking you can come down with your kayak. Hell, you can use my kayaks. They're probably not set up as well as yours, but I got 2 kayaks on a trailer and freaking the boat and an empty room, dude. You're more than welcome to it.
That's true, dude. I forget that you got kayaks too. We could just.
But they're basic. I take the total opposite approach. It's got a paddle and a freaking bin and a kick drive, and go have fun. No batteries, no nothing.
I think that's actually better. The batteries, dude, is not even for electronics. It's just for the cameras.
Yeah, I just run power packs when I run the
Yeah.
camera. So.
But yeah, guys, we'll definitely get Mikey on again. Maybe when I get him when he's not so busy, which is when he retires in like 5 years. So if you guys haven't, this is my own personal mission. Go subscribe to his channel because I want to see him get that goddamn silver play button.
Me too.
This dude has been sitting at like 98,000 subscribers forever.
Too long.
So if you haven't subscribed to his channel, just do me a favor. Go hit that button because I want to see him get that damn thing. And he can do whatever he wants with it after. I just want to see
I'll
him
bring it
show
to every podcast and set it. I'll be real freaking real not humble about it.
Just get like a Flavor Flav chain and just
Oh,
wear it around
dude,
your neck.
that is what I'll shoot a video like that. That's actually a really good idea.
Be like, hey guys, I'm throwing the Gambler Ace, and here's my play button, and we're gonna catch some largies. But yeah, guys, we're gonna end it right here. But I want to thank Mikey for coming on and taking the time because, like I said, I've been bugging him for months now, and we finally got the stars to align. So I figured I'd have him come on.
Well, I appreciate the gentleman in the chat box too, kind of talking and watching the videos and that, and bringing some cool stuff up. So we'll do it again sometime, dude. I'm going to go eat some dinner and do a little more work on the computer. I'll catch you later, dude. All right.
All right. See you guys.